Hello student. Today we are going to discuss Raag Darbari's significant aspects. I would like you to see this, read it again and again. If there are any mistakes, kindly ignore. And anything which you find of your use that. So we are going to study about Raag Darbari. Okay. The history of village and literature. The Village is a narrative poem by George Crabbe, published in 1783. The poem contrasts the traditional representation of the rural Augustan poetry with the realities of village. History of the Village and Literature. I have sent you back Mr. Crabbe's poem, which I read with great delight. It's original, vigorous, and elegant. Johnson's friend and biographer James Boswell also praised the village. It was said at the time of publication that Johnson had made extensive change to the poem, but Boswell responded by saying that the aid given by Johnson to the poem as to the traveler and deserted village of Goldsmith were so small as by no means to impair the distinguished merit of the author. 80% India live in villages. Abstract India has been a nation of villages that makes the basic construct of our village civilization. Over a period of time, the village or their cluster have evolved into towns and further into cities. Even today, more than 80% of Indians live in village, novel being the slice of life has over a period of time. Touch upon the life of the rural India in different shades, from the Munshi Premchand, Mulkraj Anand, R.K. Narayan, down to Shilal Shukla to the Indian novelist, have potently brought to the panorama of life on the literary canvas in the best of pattern. Shilal Shukla Raag Darbari 1968 is one of the best literary record of real power politics, which shows the traces and trajectories of administration and politics in rural UP village somewhere around the late 1950s. Raag Darbari presented a fictional story of village Shivpalganj, which symbolizes a typical Indian village. Shivpalganj is situated in Rai Bareli district, southeast of Lucknow. See here, one thing we need to understand, you just focus some idea how the idea of village is being given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and how the idea of village is being given by Gandhi. Gandhi talks about the innocency, spirituality, a cohesive, inclusive, and a very innocent society of village where everything is fair, very pure. For example, the pollution is not there, the behavior of the people is innocent, and it's a very primitive and very simple society. But Dr. B.R. Ambedkar talks about the all complexities of village. Village society is manipulative, divided into caste, highly patriarchal, chauvinism is there, and it's based on power structure. There are few communities, caste and gender, they control the power. How the institutions like panchayat, cooperative society, college, ship, sh- college, and all other police station, which is devoid of women presentation and completely controlled by man. So that is how, even if the control of the power, you will see it is in the hands of few selected, and they are from the so-called upper caste. So how this society of village is manipulative, it is not so simple the way it is being projected, uh, the idea of Gandhi. So that's how you have to understand how. And for this we can contrast, if you just have to see the reference of the literature, then Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiment with Truth, is the best resource which you can use. And the second one is Ambedkar's article in 1915, Caste is Mechanism, Genesis and Development, where he's talking about the village community and the caste system. So these are the two basic primary sources which you can use for your answer also. At least quote them in your answer. Now, struggle to control power institutions, money, muscle power. It depicts the struggle of power in the key village institutions, that is, namely, cooperative unions, the village council, and the college, as well as it portrays the perverted caste system, distorted social values, corruption in administration and politics, use of muscle power, etc. The picture of which is still not much different even after 50 years of the publication of this novel. The proposed paper is an analytical study of the village lives, both from the angles of the simplicity and complexity. So the idea of Gandhi about village is simplistic. It's a simple society, and the idea which is given by Ambedkar about the village is a complex society. So you just have to depend on these two words, simplicity and complexity, with special reference to Shilal Shukla Raag Darbari. Caste and gender bias. It portrays the perverted caste system, distorted social values, corruption in administration, politics, use of muscle power, etc. The picture, which is still not much different even after 50 years of the publication of this novel. Glowing image of the village. In a traditional village, the scenery start with farms, fields, which full of our sight as soon as we leave the city start approaching towards the village. Farmers can be seen working in the field, showing crops, irrigating, reaping, harvesting, and it's a happy, simple. And for this village community, also, if you need to understand, please watch the movie Mother India, acted by Nargis Dutt. Please watch that movie. It will give you a clear understanding about how the village manipulation is there, and especially money lending, the Lala and Banya, how the Banyan and Lala used to control the village community before Indira Gandhi ji started this nationalization of the banks. So that's how nationalization of bank by Indira Gandhi ji was a liberation, economic liberation given to Indian community by a great visionary leader. Village could be community, admin, culture, ritual, heritage, belief, identity. What is the concept of village studies? Village studies provide a platform to explore the cultural heritage, rituals, and belief system that shapes the identity of rural communities. Understanding cultural dynamics at the grassroots level is essential for comprehending the a broader cultural landscape of India. Complexities of the largest democracy in the world. In the novel Raag Darbari, Shilal Shukla explores the little nuisance and complexities of the largest democracy in the world. India, this creative work as a political satire explicitly presents the pathetic condition of India by metaphorically presenting a typical Indian village called Shivpalganj. As Gillian Wright points out in her introduction to the translated version of Raag Darbari, Politics and Government. As Gillian Wright points out in her introduction to the translated version of Raag Darbari, Politics and Government, are the two integral aspects of this novel. Therefore, the first part of this paper traces the evolution of these two strong pillars of India by focusing on the ideas presented in the novel, and remaining part elucidates how much India changed since independence in terms of the socio-political and cultural perspective envisioned by the visionary leaders and shared by common man. Socio-political and cultural perspective. It is a microcosm of Indian village which are aliened, alienated and neglected in terms of modern material outlooks and developments. In India, politics and government are the two important factors that decide the fate of the country, as Gillian Wright points out in her introduction to the translated version of Raag Darbari. Politics and government are the two integral aspects of this novel. Therefore, the first part of this paper traces the evolution of those two strong pillars of India by focusing on the ideas presented in the novel, and the remaining part elucidates how much India engaged since independence in terms of socio-political and cultural perspective envisioned by the visionary leader and shared by common man. Post-colonial India. In the Raag Darbari, Shilal Shukla illustrates a picture of post-colonial Indian political scenario which is muddled by vested sectarian interest motives and evil political practices. The novel, as a political satire, explicitly presents the pathetic condition of India by metaphorically presenting a typical Indian village called Shivpalganj. How does modern material world work here? By using this novel as a weapon, Shilal Shukla criticized relevant socio-political issues as he summons the nation to raise its voice for a change. The picture of Shivpalganj is a microcosm of Indian villages, which are alienated and neglected in terms of modern material outlook and development. Modern material outlook and development, you mean to understand the means of transport, road construction, establishment of factories and production units, in terms of school, college, hospitals. So these are the, for example, how far we are taking metro to the interior villages of all states of India. So the development which is taking place in city, for example, a transport which is metro or some other fast means, the road system, the school, college, institutions, and production units. These are the basic things which give employment, healthcare, and education system. So these are, how the community or the society is being properly taken care in terms of health, in terms of employment, in terms of placement, in terms of a good communication and a transport system. So how far we have taken all these facilities to the village. For example, how many hours the electricity is not been cut, regular electricity, and basically it's overall, and moreover how much sports facilities we have. So this kind of facilities, if we are not able to have, then it means we are not improving. The microcosm of Indian village means, what Shivpalganj is having in terms of these facilities, these physical and this information technology, infrastructure level development. The same we can apply to the macrocosm of India, or India as a whole. So, in a nation where people ranging from school child to well known political leader daily uses charming words like development, modernity, justice, equality, etc., to point out the index of the progress of our nation, but the sad reality is that the majority of the Indian villages and people still follow a primitive traditional lifestyle which is full of supernatural beliefs, evil social practices, and pathetic economic condition. As a visionary writer, Shilal Shukla declares, the truth that change has to be made from the bottom of the society. Progress must be built upon the soul of this nation, and that is the village. So, at the village level, we see the politics, patriarchy, politics, gender discrimination, caste system, and everything there. So, we see how the institutions like Panchayat, these are the institutions, these are the infrastructure, Panchayat, cooperative society, college, and police station. How much they are inclusive, how much they are flexible, inclusive, progressive, and actually making the life of the people better. But these are the institutions which becomes means of exploitation. That's how the microcosm of the Indian, uh, Indian, Indian society, Indian infrastructure, Indian value system, and that's how it is implemented to the almost complete India. British versus Indian rule. India was ruled over 3 centuries by the British, and they have made tremendous changes and contributions to our social, cultural, religious, and economic institutions. The idea of politics and government is one of the significant contribution made by the British to the India as an imperial power. The British ruled the fragmented and diverse Indian as a unified integral country. British made this Herculean task possible only through their own Western political tactics, and also by the introducing Western legal, social, and economic institutions. That is why Shilal Shukla writes about the policies in novel. British installed them in 1947 to return to their homeland. Actually, here when we are talking about the British rule, they actually came here to utilize the resources of India. But whatever resources they wanted to utilize, in by default they created certain infrastructure. For example, the railway system was built by Britishers, and the communication system was built by Britishers. Number of institutions were also built, or it was there for their benefit, but by default the Indian society, Indian system also got benefit out of that. So that's how we have to take as a by default uh, infrastructure made by Britishers. It's not with the purpose to make Indian society better. That we have to be cautious here. So English versus Indian rule. 13 December 1600, British East India Company. It came, 13 December 1600. 100. British India came, a company established in India. Company was of 72,000 pounds. 1743, 15-year-old Clive reached to India. MJ Akbar, Dulali Sahib, and the Black Zamindar. This is a book actually which you need to see. This is, this book is very significant actually. This Dulali Sahib, which is giving this information. 1770 and to 1915, 22 famine India Sea. John Kia book The Honorable Company, the history of East India Company. 3rd November 1772, Warren Hastings letter to Court of Directors, letter about death and revenue collection. When Clive went to England, he had 80,000 pounds in his corpus. So this is how Britishers exploited India. Basically, this is the fact which we are presenting. 5 to 6 crore revenue for the company. It has 50,000 soldiers. Gobindo Ramer Chadi was the power symbol, as the first book's Black Zamindar was. He was Calcutta deputy collector. So this is a very popular. Find out sometime. Gobindo Ramer Chadi. It's a very symbolic, word or symbolic thing which we need to know. What is this Gobindo Ramer Chadi? The British system started a system of revenue collection, and in that process, some Indians were appointed as collectors, revenue collectors, deputy collectors, and they used to collect revenue. So in that one Gobindo Ramer, who was a deputy collector, and he used to keep a chadi, and how with this chadi he was beating people to force them to give revenue. So that's how. Book H.E. Busted Echoes from Old Calcutta. William Mackintosh writing about the daily routine of one English officer in India. Pran Neville, famous historian, book Sahib India, Venegated from the Raj. A white Sahib is sitting on the toilet seat and he is being held by other man. John Key, History of British India, and William Russell's diary. So these are informations through which we can find out the British rule, their exploitation system, but only focusing on the money. 180,000 pounds in the corpus or the purse of Clive, 50,000 soldiers, and 5 to 6 crore revenue. And then how this company came with only 72,000 pounds and how it increased its value. Next is archaic state to a modern nation. With the advent of English education in India, our culture, social, and religious domains begin to reflect sudden changes and progress along with the changes as an archaic state to a modern nation. Srilal Shukla clearly portrays the influence of English education in India by making the master ask a question to this student. There are masters ask a student, how can you learn bloody science without English? Then the idea of India according to Wright, Children Wright. This question is not just applicable only to the science, but also to every India to reflect upon the importance of English in all sphere of life. Our ancestors began to fight for freedom when they realized the value of Western principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity through English education. And that's what the most of the time we find this reference, liberty, equality, fraternity, in the writings of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. They read about the French Revolution and American struggle for independence, and they got inspiration from all those epic freedom against fights in history, in which later helped our ancestors to form a nationalist consciousness. An ultimate result of this kind of conscious result in the formation of a nation called India. During the colonial period, the Britishers were the only enemy of the whole country. But after independence, the Indians began to fight against themselves. Only the rulers changed from the British elite to the Indian elites, but the servitudes and exploited untouchables under both states regime remain the same. So that's how here I would like to quote Bhagat Singh. What Bhagat Singh made in 1929, he made one statement. He said that if we do not go for the equality in the society, then the power will be shifted from the white Sahib to the Brahmin Sahib. And these the Brahmin Sahib are the powerful Indians, the patriarchal Indians who will rule, control the power. Vediji's principle, Daroga Sarpanch versus Chamar. So the fight between the ruling elite Indians and the common people in our country became a natural phenomena. Shivpalganj village in this novel gives a clear picture of this kind of an Indian situation, where Vedji, village pradhan, and other teachers in the village are representative of Indian elite, and Chamars And the peasants in the village are the people who represent the common people in India who have to suffer under all authoritative system. God Vishnu versus Ranganath. Shukla describes as the great god Vishnu stands head to toe like a poor lotus flower. So Ranganath stood head to toe, a vision of the white khadi cotton, the homespun cloth popularized by Mahatma Gandhi. This is a quote from the text. He wrote a khadi cap, shirt, and pajama, and he wore a khadi cap, shirt, and pajama. Over his shoulders hung a bag of a kind used by Gandhi, like land gift movement. This description of Ranganath shows how much the influence of Gandhi and the ideologies of the Congress over the people in India after independence. One another occasion to describe the secular ideology of Congress Shukla writes, Gandhi and Nehru are not the name of caste but the names of individuals. This is a simple way to rate the country of the caste system. How can we remove caste from India? If you take the caste, if you name away from the man and convert into a surname, then nothing remain in the caste. It destroys itself. This is how Shila Shukla is replying. How could to remove a caste from India? Idea of India, according to Sunil Khilani. But in this book, the idea of India, Sunil Khilani observed that enduring the legacy of the Nehruvian state was not its economic achievement, but in the establishment of the viable structure of relatively autonomous and democratic nation state at the core of society committed to the idea of building a reformist, political, independent, capitalist society. During this period, the state stabilizes and assumed responsibilities ranging from the abolition of untouchability, establishment of places of higher education and culture, to building dams and nuclear reactors. Third 5 year plan. There a note goes like this. The third 5 year plan, Village Council Shipalganj. This inscription on the foundation stone also gives the message that 5 year plan were made for the progress of the nation. And this development has to be firm, the lower strata of the society. Another important thing is that the name of the Shipalganj village on the foundation stone is the best example of autonomous rule of the village council in India. The name of the village council on the foundation stone displays the idea of an autonomous and self-reliant village council system, which was also implemented by the Congress after independence. In India, the early 60s witnessed a lot of changes in agriculture sector. The Green Revolution in 1960 made it grand arrival all over the world by increasing all agriculture production. The splendid effect of this revolution was also visible in the agriculture production of our country. So, when we talk about the third 5 year plan, in the terms of Shivpalganj, we understand that how can we utilize the fund, which is coming in panchayat, cooperative society, college, and police station for the self and the individuals, not for the community and for the society. So that's how 5 year plan means, utilizing the fund or the revenue get got from the central government to the state government for the personal or the use of corruption. That's how this 5 year plan is working. Agriculture versus industry. And our leaders and 5 year plans always give the first preference to the agriculture sector. In the novel, Shilal Shukla points out that after this, the political leaders explained that progress in agriculture was progress of nation. So this was the period when Indians started to look up to agriculture production to create material growth of our country. Because as Shukla observed, everyone was pleading for the increasing in agriculture production and to developing nation. Indian always trusted the agriculture sector more than in industrial sector. That is what Shukla explained against when he talks about the great politicians in the novel who gives a visit once a year. He described that politicians like this, he congratulated himself that thanks to the speech he made last year at the winter crop this year was going to be good. The farmers were cultivating the land according to the instruction. They had realized that the land should be plough and not only fertilizers but seed too should be put into it. They had to begin to understand all that they were told, and they had to lose their apprehensions about the new idea. The farmers were becoming progressive, and in short, they only backward things about them was they still farmers. So this is how the agriculture. So a politician who comes and instruct farmer, a farmer who has devoted 40-50 years of his life in the field, is being taught by a politician who never visited even a any farmland and who never saw even a single seed in the field. So that's how, the people who do not have any knowledge about any field, they become the master instructor to to make people to instruct, and that's how the corruption is there. So practically those who don't know anything about certain thing become the master instructor about that particular thing. That's what the satire and humor, it's a satire basically. This paragraph is full of satire. You can actually give the reference of page number 56. Then our leaders take only credit. Industry and agriculture was leader do and what people understand. On one side everyone talks about industrial development and economic progress, but on the other side Indians who need agriculture and economic development will see the farmers as uncivilized and downtrodden. Normally, the village in India are untouched and alienated by both the government and developments. Political leaders and government officials deliver non-stop speeches on village and progress, but when the matter of development comes to a more practical level, then all these men prioritize their vested interests and selfish motives. A classic example from the text to show the distance between the villages and modernity is that when master asks a student who was it who brought a diesel engine into village, does anybody know? Then the boy answered, you brought it. Master Moti Ram's Chakki Wala master and his teaching. Master Moti Ram, as an Indian, is the one who spread out the idea of modernity through his four-floor mill diesel engine. Here, Shilal Shuk says. So, when Master Moti Ram, who is teaching in the college, and he's talking about the modernity and the diesel engine. So he give example of his own floor mill, and Master Motiram is more interested to maintain his floor mill rather than expertising himself in the classroom teaching. So his main idea is to get the salary and work for his floor mill rather than to improve the students. The then and the village idea of the modernity. Shukla traces the invasion of modernity into the Indian village along with the developments of 1960s. Another example then can be related to this idea of modernity is that description of the Vediji's house. The Srila Shukla explained that the sort of symbolic modernization exemplified by the Indians' gleaming airport and glittering five-star hotels and even affected the architecture of this house. These are prime examples from the novel which clearly explain the late 50s and 60s quest for modernization, and these were the periods when our country's social, economic, political, culture domain started to get as a steady. All these material development are connected to each other. Panchayat, cooperative society and political situations, and Changamal College. For instance, though English education, the Indian realize the truth that social evils like untouchability and sati decreased the acceleration of the development of our culture society. There is a part where Vedaji remember the Prime Minister's speech, that in speech he says, village uplift was only possible on the basis of school cooperative committee and the village panchayat. So that's how we come to know about the institutions, the value and the significance of these institutions. Our great leaders were illiteracy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this paper, school cooperative union, community centers, and village panchayats played an important role in the development of our nation. When India became an independent nation, first problem that was forced by our great leaders were illiteracy. Here it was major hurdle to all form of development, and only way to eradicate this problem was to provide free education to all our country people. It is because the Shilal Shukla explained that beginning of the 10th chapter, the Changamal Vidyalaya Intermediate College was founded to inspire the youthful citizens of the nation with great ideals by providing them the best education to make them means of the country to uplift. Idea of community center and land reform. In the post-colonial Indian scenario, other than education and government gave much preference to certain other factors like community center, land reform movement and village panchayats. All these implementations were made to emancipate the farmers and the untouchables in the village. The idea of community center was introduced in India to secure the health of the village. As I mentioned earlier, normally Indian villages were very much alienated from the so-called development, and due to the lack of their progressive mentality, they were not aware of hygiene, healthcare, and epidemics. The villagers always equated these issues with supernatural beliefs. So, in this kind of archaic world, the idea of community center was great relief to the villages all over the nation. The land reform movement was another significant change in the post-colonial Indian government. This movement in the country started as a reaction against the feudal landlords in India who were trying to dominate and exploit the poor farmers. For instance, in Raag Darbari, Shilal Shukla clearly explains the importance of land reform movement in India by referring to the Vinoba Bhave Bhudan movement. Division of power and idea of democracy. Both these names suggest the influence and impact of the Indian land reform in early 50s and 60s. The division of power is one of the most prominent feature of the Indian democracy. In India, the village council or the village panchayat is the best example that stand for the division of the power. In this work, Shukla clearly illustrated the whole process of democracy through the villages of the Shivpalganj, their Pradhan, Vadiji, Sanichar are the best example who reflect the idea of democracy even though they have their intentions and interests behind everything, as Gandhian says to Mata Prasad. Brother, Mata Prasad, you don't have the qualities of a leader. A leader needs to know every vein in his people's body, but the people shouldn't know anything about the leader. Our leaders only think about money. The second phase of Indian politics began with the fall of the Congress in India in late 60s. This was the period that witnessed a lot of tension and conflict all over the country. The material progress and the steady growth of agriculture sector made our leaders dream only about money, not about the people whom they represent. And these leaders become the prominent of sectarian politics. Most of the leaders who are supposed to serve the people begin to serve the caste and class of the people. In this novel, Ramadin Bikram Khervi is the best example of the leader who follows this kind of sectarian politics. Corruption is national culture. Because Shilal Shukla represent him in this way later on when he fell a victim to a factional politics not for his any particular reason but just due to the influence of the village or rather national culture. This kind of politics which is based on caste, class and religion made the situation in post-colonial India more complex. And the politicians begin to make more money by using the power and from the huge amount they begin to give little portion of the money to the villagers just for the vote. Common people begin to fight against the kind of injustice and military ways. The working class men, peasants, untouchables, and our country begin to form militant peasants and people movement against sectarian leaders and the dirty polity. That's why the novel sub inspector says bribery, theft, dacoit. Now they have all be one and same, the communism. So you just discard communism. A judicial system, how the judicial system of India is working, with the reference of uh, Raag Darbar. That is what principle elaborate in the novel. For even bigger people are big high courts and the highest class of all the Supreme Court. If anyone can admonishing glance to them, they go straight to Delhi to file a writ petition. Through the words of the principal, Shilal Shukla criticizes the judicial system in India, which stands for the idea of equal justice to all, but in reality it provides only just injustice. And these statements reveal the truth that the judiciary in India is very much influenced by politically powerful and rich individuals. For the common people, the situation is very hard, and that's why Chote says to the magistrate that when you set foot in a court, you already have one leg in jail and one out of it. These words reflect the conditions of the modern complex judicial system in country. Along with this, government and bureaucracy also share an equal stature of complexities in terms of their function. In the novel, Shilal Shukla explained bribery as a common phenomena among the bureaucrats in India. Naxalbari movement. Here, the inspector is talking about the Naxalbari system, which was spreading as a reaction against the sectarian politics in India. And in the initial stage of the Naxalbari movement, people begin to associate with communism because of its nature and ideas. So, Naxalbari movement were the first reaction among the people against sectarian politics. When the Constitution of India was formed, people thought the new constitution would provide equal right, justice to all respective caste, race, and class. But the post-colonial Indian judiciary they failed to promise that constitution uphold and right. The common people and the peasants were very much alienated from the mainstream judicial system. What Langar says about government officials. And he observed corruption as a natural practice among both politicians and bureaucrats. The real situation of a government office is very much viable in Langar's word when he talks about the clerks in Tehsil officer. There he says, so Now it comes to this. He squanders his salary on liquor and meat curry. It's bribes to get his daughter's marriage. Again, in the same part, Shilal Shukla described what happened to an application that one submit to government office. An application can be rejected at any time. Too few stamps, the file number incorrect, one column incomplete, any mistake that is posted on the notice board and if not corrected by the prescribed date, the application is rejected. Langar's experience. Langar's experience is not an odd one in India among the clerks and other civil servants. It is a custom to know on the office doors several times to get any kind of service or help from those officials. No one wants to raise their voice against International Journal of English and Comparative Literary Studies. A kinds of injustice because the majority of the people are still illiterate. The initial enthusiasm that our government and other officials have shown in the matter of education has been lost in time. Crisis of conscience versus intellectuals. The its spelling is wrong here. Kindly correct it. It is INTELLECTUAL, intellectuals. Instead of O, it is I. The cases of illiterate individuals were more miserable than illiterate ones because the literate individuals begin to become more selfish and just begin to find solace in their own limited surroundings. They didn't raise any voice or made any agitation against these kinds of problems. That is why Shukla against that educated people in India occasionally afflicted with a certain disease which is known as crisis of conscience. Among the educated people, this disease generally attacked those who considered themselves intellectuals. Chamar in Raag Darbari. When India as an independent nation gained momentum of steady growth, our politics and bureaucrats began to forget the common people and their welfare, and that is what happened in the case of education reform too. Even in modern India, we are haunted by the scars of the caste system. For example, in the novel, there is a description of the untouchables village site called Chamari. Chamar is the name of the caste that is considered untouchables. An untouchable is a kind of vibe which before the enforcement of the constitution people didn't use to touch. This description of in the village part called Chamari, where the Chamars live, shows the segregation of untouchables from the mainstream public sphere. Constitutions versus Vedaji, inclusion versus exclusion. Our constitution guarantees equality, justice, and right to all citizens, but in reality, that equality is just an old fashioned word confined only to the pages of the constitution. The history of India is built upon the lines of these types of segregation based on the caste, creed, class, and religious, etc. That is why sectarian politics play a vital role in defining the fate and face of leaders even in modern India. When there is a division, when the chance of the violence is at its peak, and that is what we have been witnessing the terms of history of communal rights in country. Every day, the nation wakes up with a new scam story and communal tension story, which is an effect thereafter affected the colonial divide and rule policy. Vediji in the novel is non-inclusive. Finally, I would argue that the only way to save our country and agriculture from all those social evil is to negotiate with the other. Like Vediji in the novel, who is in the end gets ready to negotiate with the other and tries to embrace the other. So, only way to save our democracy is to embrace the other is respect of caste, creed, class, and will help us carry forward the legacy as the great democracy. Although here, Shukla is very satirical because when Vediji is being shown as inclusive, it is not possible. Vediji is non-inclusive. He is non-negotiative, and if he is negotiating and including, that is for his own interest. Because for the conducting of a meeting, cooperative society meeting, he need a quorum. So for that quorum, he would just ask anybody to be there. He would be polite for some time, but finally he has to be very selfish. So this inclusion of Vediji is a satire used here by Shilal Shukla. So thank you so much, students. Kindly share this PPT with your friends and write it well in your exam. All the best. I'm Dr. Anju Gurawa. Thank you so much. God bless you.